Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join his mission.
I had a moment, like, I've had lots of moments, but this was I had to confront a pedophile in the street who'd come to get one of my children.
Really?
He basically
That
considered...
child was already living in your home at
Oh,
that time?
yes, but he wasn't happy about it.
Okay.
And in fact, Angela and I used to do street prayer walks in that area of Chiang Mai, and we had to stop. We had local people, we're talking street people, come up to us and say, you can't come here, it's too risky
You're just
for you.
walking around praying.
Yeah, because they all knew us,
Yeah.
and they knew what we did, and they said,
Yes.
that guy's after you, and if he sees you doing your prayer walks,
Yeah.
he will follow you home.
Wow.
I used to sleep with a baseball bat next to the bed. So one day he ambushed us with our children, and I stood in front of this particular girl, and it was probably the first time in her life I was willing to die for her.
Yes.
Seriously.
Wow.
And, criminals here can be armed. He could have had a knife or a gun. I didn't know. He probably didn't. But the point was he could have. I didn't care. I stood in front of her, and I had it out with him. I then had my Western family. Oh, verbal.
Verbally.
We were having a verbal.
Didn't do the sudden laying on of hands, fivefold ministry or anything?
And it didn't get
come to
that far.
point, yeah.
But what happened was, so this is interesting cross-culturally, my Western family members, because I had my older children, were teenagers at the time, my wife and my older children were saying to me, in Thailand, losing your temper is considered to be raising your voice, anything like that. And I was basically, I was all
Forget about that cultural nuance,
and I was
right?
basically, over my dead body. So they're all telling me back down. So I did. Worst thing I could have ever done. When I did that, he got belligerent.
Yeah.
Very belligerent. And then he basically said, I'm going to phone the police and say you're a pedophile. This is coming from the pedophile.
Wow.
And he got out his phone, and there's a crowd's gathered. So this is a major, So somehow it got diffused. We actually had to drive away from the scene, load up kids and drive away. It was very
How
traumatic.
many kids you have with you at that time?
At that time, about 4 or 5.
Okay. Much less than what you have now.
Yes. And at the time, I said, I'm walking home.
Okay.
So my wife drove off with the family
Why did you do that?
because I was, 1, upset,
Yeah.
and 2, I really believed that he would probably carry out a threat. And as a Western male, I mean, come on, there are real Western pedophiles in Chiang Mai.
Sure.
If someone accused me of that, I was just thinking, well, I'm going down. I'm going to be in a prison cell by tonight.
Well,
And walking home was a bit like, well, I'm putting off the inevitable.
I see.
So all the way home, I'm doing a Jeremiah with God. I mean, I'm really in God's face. And, I'm ranting and raving to God. And at some point, I just heard a very quiet voice say to me, son, do you trust me? And of course I trust you, Lord, but...
Always with that but, comma.
And then, again, very gently, quietly, son, do you trust me? And of course the third time. Now, in Scripture,
There's a
three's map means
third
something.
time's a charm, yes.
When it came a third time, I quietened down. And I thought about it for a minute, and I said, well, I say I trust you, but this is getting down to the wire, right? I mean, there's no...
Yeah, you're in a major serious event here.
You can't fake it here. And he's God. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, you can't
Not
fake it
easily
with God
to fake
anyway.
out anyway.
But we try sometimes,
Yeah.
but there's not really much point. And so I said, honestly, well, I say I trust you. And then I said to him, well, if trusting you means that I'm meant to go to prison for your purposes, and then I started thinking, no offence, but I started thinking of all the things people would do to me, a white guy in prison, especially if I was being called a pedophile.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, this is not, this is definitely do not pick up the soap. And,
Okay, there you have it.
I'm
folks.
human.
Yeah.
I'm human.
Sure, yeah.
I was terrified.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done anything wrong, but it didn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of thing is... I mean, and this guy is actually an evil fellow. He's a drug dealer. He's a pedophile. I mean, he's not going to hold off.
Yeah.
So I got to a point of calmness. I mean, it was a 3-hour walk home. I was some
walk
distance
home?
from home.
Wow.
And
Okay.
when I got home, I was half expecting that there would be police at the door. And I was at peace. If that's what happens, that's what happens. I'm going to trust you. There was no police when I got home. And if you stop and think about it, is a guy who's basically in the criminal underworld going to ring the police?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But
True. But
you're not
messes
thinking
with their
that.
psyche, yeah.
You're not thinking that at the time. You're just thinking like, I'm going down here.
Yeah.
It took about a further 5 months for us to receive our deliverance, because God said, will you trust me? 5 months later, that guy was taken out of the scene. He's never been seen again.
Wow.
People in the
Because
community,
he kept hounding you, or
he wanted to find us. He wanted to get to our home and break in and,
I see.
take a child from us. As far as he was concerned, she was his property.
Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join his mission. This podcast is powered by Within Reach Global. Subscribe, watch, and listen on YouTube today. Visit missionspulse.com.